Bobwhite quail are historically a very important bird on the landscape of Delaware, very popular with hunters and bird watchers alike. In the springtime, you used to be able to hear their very distinctive whistles all across the landscape of Delaware. But due to recent changes in habitat and habitat loss, changes in farming practices, urban development, increased predation, bobwhite quail populations have really plummeted from highs in the 1970s to record lows currently, to the point where today bobwhite quail can only be heard in a very select few locations around the state. One of those locations where quail did have managed to hang on has been the Cedar Swamp Wildlife Area. Starting in around 2006, the Division of Fish and Wildlife identified this area as an area where we could potentially do something to help restore or at least maintain a viable wild quail population. One of the first things we did and identified from a quail perspective was these early successional grass forb fields and buffers. These areas are very important for quail throughout the summer, especially for chick rearing and nesting and for foraging, but are really on decline throughout the state of Delaware as a whole. So the first step we did was identify a lot of our fields that had maybe low productivity areas, wet field edges, areas that really weren't, high quality farm agricultural ground to begin with, and took those out of production and installed these early successional buffer strips. You can see out here we planted a diversity of plants, both that produce seeds and that are good for insect production for quail. You have a lot of goldenrods, which are very high insect producers. We have our grasses out in here. This particular grass is broom sedge. It's a warm season bunch grass that's very good for quail nesting habitat. We put these buffers ranging anywhere from 50 to 100 feet, depending on the field location, along the edges and a lot of our low productivity areas along our ag fields. Again, not only did bobwhite quail love these buffers, rabbits, we've seen a tremendous increase in our rabbit population, and turkeys. This is great nesting and foraging habitat for turkeys, so it's something that's going to benefit a lot of different wildlife species, not just bobwhite quail. One of the other areas we identified as being very deficient on this particular property was this thick woody escape cover. It had looked like many farms around the area of very clean farmed right up to a very sharp forest edge. So what we did is we came in along this woods edge over here, and as you can see, the openings we selectively cut out a lot of the lower quality, low grade material. You can see we left what we would consider the better quality and better wildlife trees. We have some persimmons and a lot of oaks and poplars. This cover is very important for quail, especially in the wintertime. They need areas where if we get a snowstorm or an ice storm that they can get in and get away. It's also very important predator escape cover, even during the summertime. You can imagine quail and other small animals such as rabbits and songbirds that rely upon moving around on the ground need an open ground layer. So even though as I walk through here it looks pretty thick, you can see I can walk pretty easily without tripping, stumbling. And if you look down at my feet, the ground is actually very open. After a number of years, that will gradually fill in and you'll lose a lot of your quality of your habitat. We rely a lot on prescribed burning here. You can get similar effects from other practices such as mowing or fallow disking.
Hi, I'm Heather Bevan with USDA Natural Resource Conservation Services. You know us as NRCS.
And we're happy to say that now through our Environmental Quality Incentives Program, otherwise known as EQIP, we have financial assistance to allow private landowners to add quail habitat and quail management to their farm. So we're hoping that with the success story at Cedar Swamp, that landowners can now see that with the right habitat and management, we can perhaps expand quail populations throughout Delaware. We have several priority areas that we're focusing on in Delaware, but we have habitat options for all farms throughout the state. So if you're interested, please start by calling your local NRCS field office.